I guess the first question, before we even get to the details of tax reform, is given the swirl of controversy we've seen in Washington, based on what you've observed and what your representatives in Washington are hearing, does tax reform get done this year?
Well, thanks for having me on. It's a pleasure to be here. I think that's a tough question for me to answer. I think you'll have to talk to the legislators and politicians. We're running a pharmaceutical company here, but I can say we think it should get done this year. Its time is now for the U.S. to overhaul its corporate tax system. We're not satisfied as a country with the growth rate we've achieved, and really tax policy shapes our ability to invest and grow. So we think the time is now to reevaluate corporate tax policy and lower the base rate, go to a territorial system, and really allow American companies to invest in a way that would improve the economy.
You talk about a territorial system for taxation of foreign earnings. I know that's one of your priorities. Within that, what is the single most critical element?
Well, it's important for your viewers to understand what territoriality is, which is the U.S. is one of the only economies in the world, and really the only major economy, that taxes its domestic companies on both its domestic and foreign earnings. And we also pay income tax in foreign jurisdictions on our foreign earnings. So territoriality eliminates that double taxation on U.S.-made goods that are shipped overseas and where we make earnings. So we think that's just a rebalance of the system. Our system's just older. Others have updated their system, moved to territoriality. It's the new global standard, and the U.S. needs to move that direction in our view.
So the problem is territorial systems around the world are being eroded by companies that shift their profits to lower tax bases. How do you get around that problem?
Well, I have a different perception on that. I think actually the shifting and the contortions that companies can go through to move their earnings is driven more by systems like the one the U.S. has, which taxes earnings no matter where they occur and incents companies like ours to keep assets, including cash, offshore. With the territorial system, you pay tax where you earn the money. Of course, we have a big, robust business in the U.S., and we paid lots of U.S. taxes. But today we pay U.S. tax on both the income we earn in the U.S. and overseas, and that's different from other developed economies.
I think one of the critical things as well that we're looking at here is the tax treatment for those companies that have cash abroad and what it costs to repatriate and whether or not that comes over. It is an important issue for your company, perhaps more so for other companies out there. Should there be conditions attached to repatriating that cash, i.e. it has to go into R&D, it has to go into investment rather than be pushed out to shareholders?
Well, we do have a lot of cash overseas, as do many American companies, so it is an important issue for us. We're open to that kind of discussion. We like to put that cash to work. Right now it's just sitting in banks, mostly in Europe. We can bring it back. There's proposals on the table to have a low tax rate on that repatriated cash so the U.S. government can invest in infrastructure. And if there's guidelines for its use, as we've had in the past, we're open to that as well. We have investments we'd like to make domestically. And of course, a business to run here. So it's not just purely to take back and dividend to shareholders. We can put it to work, whether it's be buying American innovation in small companies or investing in our own laboratories and factories.
I was looking, Dave, at Eli Lilly's pre-tax income and its income tax expenses. If you come inside the Bloomberg here, we've charted it out. The white line, of course, is the pre-tax income, $61.2 million in the most recent quarter, and the income tax expense is the blue line, $172 million for the period. And of course, the reason the income before tax was 61.2 is because there was this non-deductible $857 million acquired in-process R&D charge for an acquisition. What should deductions look like to encourage Eli Lilly to make more investments like mergers and acquisitions or R&D?
Right. Well, you're citing our Q1 earnings where we did acquire a company which had a late-phase pharmaceutical asset for migraine headaches. Very interested in this asset, and the current accounting rules are that for a company like this, it's treated like an asset and you deduct the whole amount. That's kind of a one-time event. That's not a normal event for us. In general, we think deductibility of certainly of R&D expenses, of normal operating expenses, and perhaps even, as the House blueprint has suggested, an accelerated deduction of capital investment, which would really spur investment in factories, plant and equipment, and construction in the U.S., would all be good ideas in a future tax proposal.
So can I shift subjects and ask you about healthcare and the efforts that both the House and now the Senate are going to make, and what your sense is of just how this is net going to impact your company? Because a repeal, it seems to me, you'll benefit from the fact that it repeals that drug maker tax, but then we could have significantly more people there that might lose insurance or drug coverage, and even more people that don't have that coverage for drugs if they take a waiver, of course, if states take a waiver and cut essential requirements.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult to tell at this juncture what actually will happen in the end. As you may know, our company supported the Affordable Care Act because we are for expanded access to the insurance system. It's not only good for business, it's good for people. So that happened under the Affordable Care Act, but what didn't happen was that innovative products and the latest therapies were not made available to patients in that expanded system. These were, by and large, low-cost, low-coverage insurance products. And so our business, should they repeal entirely, putting replace aside, wouldn't have very much impact, to be frank. And that's, of course, disappointing for business, but also think of the patients that want the latest advance who thought they bought insurance and now they don't have access to that. So whatever comes out of this, whether it's a reform of the current system, which most people agree we need, or a wholesale replacement, we think we need to balance those two considerations.
Right.
Yes, expanding access to the insurance system for people who need it, but also having insurance products that are real and reimburse patients who are sick for the latest innovations. So that's our position on the issue. Whatever version comes out, we hope it embraces those 2 points.